All right, guys, today we're going to be reading a few chapters because the chapters are very, very short. So, yesterday in chapter 1, we talked about how the whipping boy is just a boy that they plucked up from the city. And every time the prince, who they call Prince Brat, not to his face, every time he does something wrong, the whipping boy has to get whipped for the things that the boy did. The Prince Brat did. So we're on chapter 2 today, wherein the prince cannot write his name. Jimmy could count on a thrashing first thing in the morning. Sure and certain, he thought as he pulled on his fine velvet breeches and silk stockings. The prince wouldn't know his lessons. The royal tutor was quick as a fly swatter with his willow switch, and Jimmy would be back in rags. Take a last look at me, Pa. Rest your bones, he muttered to himself. Did you ever think I'd be holed up in the king's own castle and all rigged up in duds would shame a peacock? Reckon I'll fetch a pair of sharp-toothed ferrets and go to a rat-catchin', same as you. Same as you, Pa. The tutor, Master Peckwit, was a round-faced man with fat cheeks. He pointed his switch at the prince. You fiddle-faddled scholar, he bellowed. One day you'll be king, and you still don't know the alphabet from pig tracks. The prince snapped his fingers. I can always get someone to read for me. You can't so much as write your name. Pish posh, I can always get someone to write my name for me. The tutor's cheeks swelling with anger almost unhorsed the small spectacles saddling his nose. It would be easier to educate a boiled cabbage. Prepare to be punished, your lordship. 10 whacks at least, said the prince, and good and hard if you please. Jemmy, who was obliged to be close at hand for the daily lessons, reckoned that freedom was now close at hand. The prince threw him a smirking glance at Master Peckwit as Master Peckwit raised the switch and beat the whipping boy like a carpet. Jimmy didn't bawl. He didn't yelp or bellow. 10 whacks and not a sound escaped his lips. You contrary rascal, the prince exploded. I'm on to you, Jimmy from the streets. It's pure spite that you won't howl. Think you can cross me and get away with it? Ha! Never and no how. Gaw, thought Jimmy. He's going back on his word. And don't try to run away. I'll have you tracked down till your tongue hangs out like a red flag. And so it went for more than a year. The prince learned nothing. The whipping boy learned to read, write, and do sums. Chapter 3 The Runaways. On a night when the moon gazed down like an evil eye, the young prince appeared in Jemmy's chamber. Boy! Tumble out of bed. I need a manservant. Jimmy saw that the prince was wearing a black cloak and carrying a wicker basket the size of a sea chest. What you up to now, walking in your royal sleep, are you? I'm running away. The whipping boy sat bolt upright. Hardly a day passed that he didn't make one plan or another to run off. But a prince? What horrible new mischief was this? You can't hop off like you was common folks. What's biting you? Said the prince. I'm bored. With dumping bullfrogs in the moat so no one got a wink of sleep? Boring. And didn't you laugh fit to kill when the knights slipped off their horses and clattered to the ground? You'd hog grease the saddles? The prince folded his arms. Boring. And don't you get me thrashed so that this hide of mine feels like the devil run me over with spikes in his shoes. Let's be off. Why me? Jimmy thought. Can't you find a friend to run off with? But no, not you, Prince Brat. You've got no friends. That's why me. Jimmy pointed to the window. It's night out, he protested. The best time, replied the prince. But ain't you afraid of the dark? Everyone knows that. You won't even sleep without a lit candle. Lies. Anyway, the moon's up good and bright. Come on. Jimmy stared at him with dreadful astonishment. The king'll have a gory-eyed fit. Positively. He'll hunt us down. You'll get off light as a feather, but I'll be lucky if they don't whip me to the bone. More likely I'll be hung from the gallows. Scragged for sure. Your lookout, said the prince with a dry grin. Carry the basket, Jimmy from the streets, and follow me. Chapter 4. Containing Hands in the Fog. The night moon had lit their way like a lantern, but by dawn the runaways, double mounted on a horse from the castle stable, were hopelessly lost. A thick fog had swirled in, they'd strayed from the road, and trees had closed in on them. Forest is creepy things, said Jimmy, hanging on to the basket as best he could. Give me cobbled streets any time. A low branch almost swept them off the saddle. Boy, said the prince, get down and lead this dumb-headed beast. Lead it in this fog? I'd need 2 hands and a lantern to find my own nose. But Jimmy slipped off the saddle. A plan had been tumbling about in his head. Here's your chance, Jimmy, he told himself. Slip away in the fog. Run for it. No more whippings for you, not if you can't be found. The great sewers, Jimmy. That's the place to hide. What's keeping you? Asked the prince. Grab the halter. I'm thinking. Leaves crackled under Jimmy's feet as he began to back off. His mind was made up. Once the fog cleared, he'd find the river. Hadn't his paw taught him his way through the maze of mighty brick sewers? That's where they'd caught the fiercest rats to sell by the cageful. The dog and rat pits paid fancy prices for the best fighters, and that meant sewer rats. Who'd think to look for Jimmy under the city? Jimmy took another crackling step backward, and froze. A sudden yellow glow floated in the fog. The prince burst into squawks and bellows. Who's there? Let go! Take your hands off me, you insolent rascal! There came a rough, booming reply. Well, what we got here? The glowing lantern swayed. A noisy brat on a fine beast of a horse? Jimmy edged closer. A cutthroat, he thought. Like a snake striking, a ghostly hand darted through the fog and clutched his arm. A second cutthroat. Jimmy looked up and barely made out a long, bony face with hollow cheeks and a nose like a meat cleaver. I got another, Billy, cackled the second man, shoving Jimmy forward. All right, and that's the end of tonight's reading.